beginning, I want to breed a little bit of excitement today because this afternoon in this building, Be'ezras Hashem, we will be printing the book of Tanya. No. Yeah? You ever read the book of Tanya?
Have I ever read the book? Not the whole thing.
Oh, part of it. Portions of the book of Tanya.
Yep.
Chapters of the book of Tanya.
My mother gave $180 for a chapter. She didn't even know what it was for.
She gave for a chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a chapter, $180?
Yeah, she didn't know what it was though.
What was?
She didn't know what the Tanya was.
You see, your mother's so dedicated. She's like, my son wants me to pay for it. I'll pay for it, Zell. Yeah. As a matter of fact, anybody online, they could actually go and donate and participate in the printing of this book of Tanya on our website.
Big Mac.
What's the link? Do we have the link for that too? The link for.
Oh yeah.
I think I can send you a link if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to?
Oh no.
What? What happened?
What's up? Is not having. It's okay. Don't worry.
Fine. Can I know how to?
Sure. If you could find it for me, let's.
Okay, send them the link. The link was in order. Oh, we got the link. We got a link here, and we're gonna post the link.
To the,
No, that's it.
Article. No, that's a link to the column article.
Oh, this one. Well, they could put it on the article.
No,
Put the article. They could read. They could read about it. If you put on the article, they'll be able to read what they could. They can also participate straight from the article. There's a link in the article to the thing. Yeah, that's it. Just put it in. Put it in. There you go. Okay. In the chat, there is a link to the article that will tell you about this book, that we're actually printing a book in the yeshiva. You might actually learn over there why we print this book in the yeshiva, right? Why do we print? Why can't we just send it to printing press? There is a very important aspect of this, and therefore you click the link, not during class, because you're supposed to be paying attention to what's going on in class, all right? Good. Kanai Nahara. So again, we're printing the book of Tanya, which is one of the great Kabbalistic works of today. Okay? It's a massive work on trying to bring the essential teachings of the Kabbalah to the depth of your heart in a way that you can understand it. Many of the books on Kabbalah are actually written in a code form where you actually need some guidance and some mentorship to understand what's going on in those books, or else you're going to be completely lost. However, the Tanya was a book written with its intention that even a regular, normal, sane, intellectually capable person could understand the deeper concepts of Kabbalah, and that is actually what the Tanya is. All right? Kanai Nahara. And we're going to be printing that book here in this building. Bezrat Hashem. It's called starting at 6 o'clock.
How big is the printing press?
Huh?
How big is the printing?
They're probably just going to bring in like a copy machine here and make copies, and then they're going to send it off to bind. They're not going to bind it here. That's usually what we do. We usually, when you print a Tanya, you basically you use a photocopier. You photocopy each page, and then they put it this way. It's organized. There's a system there, and then once they finish printing all of the pages of the Tanya, however many times we've decided to print it, then they send it off to a binder who is going to bind them into a book form, and then you can use it like you use any other book.
I believe 200.
200 copies? 200 copies. Well, anybody that donates $180 to the printing gets one. So if we have 200 people that donate $180, then forget it. You're not getting one. Dollars, US dollars. All right, for anybody that wants to join this printing, you can actually join by clicking the link. We're printing the book of Tanya. Okay? Anyways, that being said, let's go back into our Talmud. If you're wondering whose beard that is in the top of your screen, that is our producer, I don't know what he's trying to do, but somehow he's, I don't know what.
Get a Tanya.
Get a Tanya. Oh, is that
it? Scan the QR code or screenshot your screen.
There you go. This says QR code. That if you If you scan that QR code, you can get a Tanya printed right here in this building. All right? Can I know how to?
Can I know?
Now, I want to focus on a particular Tosfos called Have Gochin Vishosi. It is the final Tosfos on page Kuf Vav on 106A, and this is the Tosfos that I would like to learn in this class. Normally on Thursday, you are to read back to me the Gemara that you've learned, and hopefully you learned it all and mastered it to the point where you can just go blah, 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 and let out the whole Tanya not the whole Tanya, we're getting confused, the whole Gemara of this week, and that will prove that you've actually succeeded in your tasks. All right? Because it's very important to complete the task of reading it inside. If anybody online actually used the worksheets that I handed out, if you use those worksheets, I'll actually be happy to make a Zoom call with you, and you can try to read it back to me too. You can read it back to me, see how well you did. Right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we have a WhatsApp group where we share the worksheets, and if you do the work, you can get tested as well by me, and if you like, we'll make a WhatsApp call. And if you haven't yet joined the WhatsApp group, you have a QR code right there that will enable you to easily join our WhatsApp group. If you scan the QR code, we'll leave it on for about 30 seconds, and then it's going to go off. In the meanwhile, let's get to the Tosfos. If you remember, we had an interesting story this week that Rav Ashi went to a city called Mechuzah. And in the city of Mechuzah, he was asked to make Kiddush during the daytime of Shabbat. Now, he at that point was not sure whether these people had a particular custom of making some type of blessing or some type of ceremony in the day of Shabbat. However, he knew that according to his understanding, all you had to do was say Beiri Priya Gofen. But he figured like this: in every situation that the Jewish people make kiddush or use a cup of wine on a particular mitzvah, we always make the blessing on wine Beiri Priya Gofen first, and only afterwards we do whatever other ceremony is. Okay? And therefore, Rav Ashi says, well, Borei Priya Gofen definitely comes first. The only question is there more I have to say? But he wasn't sure. And he didn't want to ask them because that may insult him, that may may look at him like, what, you're a great rabbi, you don't know what to do, right? And so what he did was he said Borei Priya Gofen, and then he kind of paused and he paid attention, he was looking, and he saw that one of the people at the tables took this cup and drank. And since he drank without waiting for any other ceremony, that was a sign to Rav Ashi that it was over, right? And that was a good, how should I say it, a very interesting play on how to figure these things out, right? Smart guy. Came up with a good thing. What's that? We're messed up. The rabbis after in the time, if you actually know what the original rabbis at the time of Talmud obligated you to do versus what you're doing today, you'd realize that an observant Jew does so much more than what the Talmudic sages taught. From the time of the Talmudic sages till today, there is tons. As a matter of fact, most of your prayer was added later. Right? What was the original prayer? Baruch She'amar. Then they would say maybe one chapter or so of Tanya of Torah or something, and then they used to say Yishtabach. Right? You should do the whole thing. You do the whole thing. Don't worry. The rabbis that established it for a reason. Don't neglect their establishment. Shkoyach. All right. Anyways, after telling you the story, we're going to go to Tosfos that's going to analyze this story a little further. All right, Tosfos, Havi Gochin Vishosi. He basically saw this elderly individual drink right after he said Beiri Priya Gofen. Comes the Tosfos. What is the job of Tosfos? What's the job of Tosfos?
To analyze what's going on?
Rashi is there to make your life easier, and Tosfos is there to make your life more complicated. All right, by the way, I say this and it sounds like a good catchphrase, but it's actually true. There are truths to this reality. Number one, Rashi actually, his purpose, his modus operandi for making his commentary was specifically for the purpose of aiding a student to understand the Gemara. However, Tosfos is taking it for granted that you already understand the Gemara, and only after you understand the Gemara, the Tosfos says, "Well, you really think you understand the Gemara? That this Gemara seems to conflict with a different Gemara, or here is a reason or an understanding that perhaps teaches you that this Gemara is not as simple as it sounds." So Tosfos is actually taking you to the next step. Rashi is taking you to step one, making you understand the actual Gemara. Tosfos is taking you from step one and trying to take you to step two and understand the Gemara at a deeper level. All right? So the Tosfos starts with im tomer, if you're going to say, which means that there is a possible question that you might ask on this, and he's about to answer. Whenever you see the im tomer, if you're going to say, meaning if you're going to say this, then I'm going to say that. In other words, if you're going to say something that's not necessarily accurate, I will tell you something that is. I'm going to explain to you why your statement is inaccurate. So, in other words, I'm about to tell you the answer to the question you haven't yet asked. Does that make sense? So when it says if you're going to say, and by the way, you have a similar terminology in the Talmud itself. It says if you're going to say this, meaning you may have a question, a statement, a comment, a conclusion, and I'm telling you in advance, don't even think so. Right? You know, in New York, I don't know if anybody was ever in Manhattan, there's certain streets in Manhattan that they have a sign there, and it says, don't even think of parking here. You ever seen those signs? Anybody in New York? You were there? Oh yeah, right? It says, don't even think of parking here. Right? So when Tosfos says the im tomer, it's basically don't even think of what I'm about to tell you. Don't even think of it. Right? So the im tomer, if you're going to say as follows, the bepedek shloisha she'achlu, in the chapter known as Shloisha Achlu, which is in Tractate Brachis, page 47a. Amrinan, it says over there, that the people eating around the table are not allowed to drink before the person that made the blessing drinks. Now again, in Brachas, it tells you very clearly that you're not allowed to drink before the person at the head of the table making the blessing drinks. However, that seems to contradict the story over here with Rav Ashi, because Rav Ashi clearly says he's watching this elderly individual drink before he drank, because he wasn't sure if it's over, right? Rav Ashi said, Bore Priya Gofen. He wasn't yet sure if he was meant to say something else, and he watched out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that one of the people drank. But it says in Brachas that you're not allowed to drink until the person that's making the blessing drinks. And if that's the case, this whole story doesn't make sense.
The guy just didn't know.
The guy just didn't know. Well, maybe the guy just didn't know whether there was more to the Kiddush then.
Right.
No, but think about it. Rav Ashi is a smart guy. Right. He knows that the guy's not supposed to drink. So if he sees somebody drink that's not supposed to drink, how is he going to trust that person is giving him accurate information? Oh, you didn't think about that.
The rabbi says the
if you see somebody do something inaccurate, why would you assume that his information is accurate? But I mean, if Amaraic sage. If he's an Amaraic sage, then he must know what he's doing. In other words, that what he did contradicts what it says in Tractate Brachas, and therefore we have a contradiction in between two different Tanaic or Amaraic statements. Right? Here it seems normal that the guy drank before Rav Ashi drank. In Brachas it says clearly you're not allowed to drink until the person that makes the blessing drinks. No. Contradiction, and that's actually what Tosfos comes around. Tosfos is saying you were so smart that you already asked this question. Right? You're saying, what, I didn't ask the question. Why didn't you ask the question? Because you didn't read Tractate Brachas. Tosfos is actually talking to somebody that knows the entire Talmud by heart. Okay? It might be annoying because you're like, listen, I don't know the whole Talmud by heart and I still want to understand what Tosfos is saying. It might be annoying. But you have to realize, imagine Tosfos is talking not to you, but to somebody who mastered the entire, the Shisha, Sidre, Storim, the entire Shas. Yeah? And now Tosfos is having a conversation with this person that knows the whole Shas by heart. and says, oh, remember, you read this story, I'm sure you were thinking about, this thing seems to contradict brachas, and now I'm about to tell you how it doesn't, right? So again, the reason why I mention this is because it's important to see the perspective of who we're dealing with, because that is how you understand the wording of Tosfos. Yeah? So you understand the question. Tosfos has a question that this Gemara seems to contradict the Gemara in Brachas. Now the Tosfos says, V'yesh loymar, and you can say as follows. In other words, here is an answer. The answer is as follows. Dahainu dafka b'hamoitzi. This rule only applies to somebody making the blessing on bread when he says hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. Shetzarech lechol, that he has to eat. Right? Meaning if somebody makes the blessing, hamoitzi lechem min haaretz, he is required to eat because he made the blessing. And therefore, if you are going to be listening to his blessing and being absolved from your obligation of saying the blessing by him saying the blessing, you have to wait till he eats, because if you don't wait till he eats, he hasn't fulfilled his obligation, and therefore you're breaking your connection to his blessing by eating before he eats.
Okay.
It's a big problem. Right? And that's in brachas was only talking about bread. But why wouldn't this rule apply to wine as well? Why not? So Tosfos is about to tell you, calm down. Okay?
Yeah, calm down.
Yeah. As it says in the chapter called Ra'u Bezdin, which is in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 29b, it says, Lo yifres adam prusa le'orchim. A person should not tear a piece of bread for his guests, ela in kein oichli mohen, unless he is eating with them. Now, literally, it doesn't mean do not give your guests bread if you're not eating with them. It means that if you are making the blessing, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and you want to give a piece of bread to your guests, you could only give a piece of bread to your guests if you are going to eat as well, which means you're supposed to eat first. Now, somebody mentioned this in the past, but I want to remind you of this. Right? 100%. Can I know it? You ready to be reminded? In today's etiquette, secular etiquette, it is normal to suggest that you as an individual, if you are the host, you should give everybody else first. Right? It's a sign of respecting your guests, right? You don't say, oh, here, everybody come to my house, and then I start eating and I don't give anybody else. Reuben's like, I don't do this, because you're Jewish. What do you think? The host eats first. Why? Tribal unity. You are like a tribal. You know. You don't like Western ethics, morals. So you like forget about it. Dump it in the garbage. Whoever's the boss is the boss. On the contrary, don't you think it brings a better vibe if the leader says, even though I'm the leader, I care about the followers first? Yeah, but how does it... Okay, whatever. Anyways, I hear what you're saying. However, I think that I personally have had a lot of guests that aren't necessarily raised religious in our society. And when they're at my house and they see that I eat first, I always see like these eyes. And sometimes when I see them looking at me funny, I explain this, and then they're like, oh, you know what, I really didn't want to offend you by asking, but I noticed it. Right? So they do notice it. Okay? Again, if you are the host, it would be respectful in many people's eyes, maybe not Reuven's, but in many people's eyes, it would be respectful that you give everybody else before you, right? Feed your children before yourself. By the way, even in Torah ethics, there's a concept that you're not supposed to eat until you feed your animals. If you have animals that are relying on you, you're not allowed to eat yourself before you feed your animals. So there's a concept that the people that are subservient to you, the people that are on a kind of lower level than you, you should treat them first. Also, perhaps because they feel already somewhat inferior, and by you eating first, it makes them feel more inferior. By you feeding them first, it makes them feel that, oh wow, this guy's huh? What's that? Again, we're not saying there shouldn't be a leader. We're saying that the leader perhaps should allow the followers or the inferior to eat first as a sign of welcoming them, as a sign of giving them some level of
That has nothing to do with it, though,
kind of
right?
like lift their spirit. Like, okay, I know you're inferior, but here you go. You get first. No, you see this also. Very often leaders are like that. A leader will put themselves last. You know, they put themselves last. Now, again, naturally a leader goes first, but because of that, by you putting yourself last, you're almost like showing your dedication to your followers, which perhaps will show some level of respect, of respect, humility.
None of those reasons are involved. It's just we do it because to not have a hefsek on the bracha.
Correct. So that's how we get into the Tosfos, right? In this Tosfos, we say that in the Jewish people, when you come to a table and we cut the bread, right? Or as in the word of the Talmud, we tear bread, right? The person that makes the blessing, which is essentially the leader, the person at the head of the table, he tears bread, he must eat first. Not only that, is the other people are not allowed to eat until he eats, but why? Because he made a blessing on the bread. And a person that makes a blessing on the bread should eat the bread, right? Therefore, if you eat before he eats, it's you disconnected from his blessing. Because he hasn't yet fulfilled the obligation, therefore he hasn't yet absolved you of your obligation. And that's why it is mandatory that he eats first. Right? Again, the person that makes the blessing, which is usually the person at the head of the table, he eats first. But that is in reference to eating bread. Yeah? Avol Kiddush, however, by Kiddush, the person making Kiddush is actually not obligated to drink from the wine. Somebody asked me, what? Didn't we learn here in our Gemara that you must taste from the wine? We learned last week you must taste from the wine, right? We even said, Shma mino hamevorich tzarich yitim, right? That he has to taste, right? The answer is that someone has to drink the wine, not necessarily the person that's making the blessing. The person that's making the blessing not necessarily needs to drink the wine of Kiddush. You can hand it to somebody else. I've mentioned to a few people yesterday as well, when it comes to Havdalah, during the 9 days prior to Tisha B'Av, in a time where we do not drink wine, right? The custom by many is that they would make Havdalah and then give it to somebody under the age of Bar Mitzvah to drink. Because the person making, even though you make the blessing Borei Pri Hagafen, you're not obligated to drink the wine from Kiddush. You're not obligated. Somebody is obligated. If you want to know, by the way, if you want to know where you can see this very clearly, just for your side information, if anybody pays attention to what's going on at a chuppah, at the wedding canopy of the Jewish people, you'll see that when they start the chuppah, they actually make a blessing on two separate cups of wine. There's the first one and the second one, right? Both the first and the second cups of wine. Well, no, the second cup of wine, technically the bride and the groom drink, but usually both the first and the second cup of wine, the person that actually makes the blessing Borei Pri Hagafen does not drink the wine. It is the bride and the groom that drinks a cup of wine, and sometimes someone else drinks the wine as well. But the person making the blessing Borei Pri Hagafen under the chuppah usually does not end up drinking the wine. He makes the blessing, and then the bride and the groom both drink from the cup of wine. Yeah. Why in the case? Yeah. That's a great question. Essentially, it's not mentioned here in the Tosfos. I won't get it. I won't elaborate too much, but I'll tell you what I believe, and it's something that I haven't seen inside. So I don't want you to 100% rely. You could 95% rely on what I'm saying. All right. Good. The wine. It's not that the blessing on wine is different. It is that when you're using wine to perform a mitzvah, therefore the wine is deeply connected to the mitzvah, and it is therefore connected to anybody fulfilling the mitzvah at that time, right? Whereas bread, essentially, when you're eating bread, it's only about eating. You're making a blessing to eat the bread. It's not a mitzvah, And by the way, in brachas, we're talking about any situation where a person eats bread. We're not specifically talking about Shabbat, right? We're talking about when anybody ever eats bread, the person that makes the blessing in the front of everybody. And by the way, today, usually, if it's not on Shabbat, usually everybody makes their own blessing, hamotzi lecha mina aretz. Usually everybody does. However, you're not necessarily obligated to do that. You could have one person that says hamotzi lecha mina aretz. If you have a table, I don't know, a sheva brachas, a bris, or whatever it is. Technically, everybody could wash their hands and sit around the table, and the guy in the front could say Baruch Hashem, hamotzi lecha mina aretz, and everybody could say Amen, and then he eats a little bit, and then he gives everybody a piece of bread.
Yotzi the motzi.
Yotzi the motzi. There you go. Can I know how to? Wow, that's a very jingly statement. Thank you. Yeah.
This is only specific to wine that's being blessed for the sole purpose of sanctification versus
Of something. It seems to be that the exception is when you're saying the blessing on wine as part of a greater or larger ceremony, the person that made the blessing of the wine is not necessarily obligated to drink. He doesn't need to drink it. No. Seemingly so. Again, we can look and research and see what the final halacha is, but I believe that that's the way. No, you could not do that. If you just brought a cup of wine here, and I would say Bor Priya Guffin and hand it to him to drink, that I'm not sure if that's allowed.
I thought this was your...
No, I'm saying if it was kiddush, or if it was a bris, or if it was a wedding, so then the cup of wine is connected to a mitzvah that's being done in that moment, and therefore anybody participating in that mitzvah could be drinking the wine. It doesn't necessarily need to be the person that made the blessing. Right? Good. Yeah, so that's basically Tosfos's answer to the question that you'd think that our Gemara is contradicting what it says in Brachos. He says no, because Brachos was talking about a person eating a piece of bread in general, and here we're talking about making kiddush. Yeah. Mihu, however, the Yerushalmi in the Talmud Yerushalmi, which is also called the Talmud, but it's a different book. Not so many people know even exists, but it does. It was the Jerusalem Talmud. The brachis, Amar Rabbi Abba b'shem Rav. It says, Rabbi Abba says in the name of Rav, Misubin asurim litoim ad sheyitim hamevorech. It says that they're not allowed to taste. They're not allowed to eat anything until the person that made the blessing eats. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says as follows: Shoisin, you can drink afal pisha loy shasa, veloy pligi. Ma de Amar Rabbi Abba kishayu kulan zekukin lekois echad. Ma de Amar Rabbi Yeshua kishayish lechol echad kois biyadoi. Yeah. So over there, even though it seems like there may have been an argument over there, right? Where one rabbi says you could drink before the person leading the table drinks, and one says you cannot. However, he says that it's not necessarily an argument, because the one that says you cannot is talking about when only the person making the blessing has a cup of wine, and then after he finishes, he's going to give out from his cup. Well, then he has to drink first. However, if each person already has a cup in front of them, you don't have to wait for the person making the blessing. You can drink right away. Okay, mashma nami de im ein koise biyode afilu shafach mekais bracha lekais acherim ein lem litem ad shitam avarich aber kisheyesh cholachat kois ein tzarich lahampten. Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. How he resolves the seeming contradiction also with the Yerushalmi. And this is why the elderly individual drank prior to Rav Ashi, because everybody had their own cup of wine. And this is actually a proof to the opinion that you do not need to pour into each cup. Today, very often a guy makes kiddush and then he pours into everybody a little bit of the cup of kiddush. Now, there's an opinion that that's the way you should do it. That you should make kiddush on a cup of wine and then you should distribute from the cup that you made the blessing on to give everybody a little bit. And that is the way most Jewish people do it today when we do kiddush. However, there's an opinion that says, no, you don't need to do that. No. First pour everybody a cup of wine, and the fact that that cup of wine was exposed on the table when the person in the front of the table made Kiddush, that Kiddush goes on all the cups of wine that are there, and then all you have to do is drink a cup of wine. And you will find in certain synagogues, I've actually seen this done, where they give out little cups of wine to everybody before the guy makes Kiddush, and then the guy makes Kiddush, and then everybody raises the cup, and there's l'chaim, and they drink. Now you would think, oh, this must be some reform, conservative, new fluffy stuff. The answer is no. That's actually a completely accepted halachic opinion. Not everybody does it that way, but it's completely halachically accepted to do it that way. And you don't even have to have a full cup, meaning the person that makes the blessing on Kiddush, he has to have a full cup of wine that is the minimum revi'is, right? Which is what, a 3.5, 3.9? It's about between 3 and 4 ounces he has to have in his cup. However, the other cups that everybody else has does not have to have that amount. And this is the Tosfos is explaining that this story of Rav Ashi proves, not only does it prove that you can drink before, by Kiddush, you can drink before the person making Kiddush drinks, but it also proves that you don't necessarily have to have the guy pouring to everybody. Because Rav Ashi, obviously, he would have had to pour to everybody, and he's holding it, he's not sure what to do, and the guy drank. Well, how did the guy drink if he didn't give it to him? Proves that he had wine before, which proves that that is a legitimate way of making Kiddush. Yeah, you understood?
Done it myself.
You've done it yourself.
In Amsterdam, when I was there.
Amsterdam?
There was a Bud house over
Yeah.
the shul over there, that's what they did.
That's what they did. I was actually, when I was in Australia, we did it that way as well. I was in Australia in a Chabad house in the North Shore of Sydney. We also did it that way. We would hand out little cups to everybody. And it would make Kiddush. It was a lot easier. Because what do you have to, a guy makes, imagine if you have, one guy made Kiddush for 50, 60 people. What, you're going to sit there pouring into 50, 60 cups? Fill it up again, yeah, like the Rebbe. The Rebbe would sit and do it to thousands of people, would pour cups to thousands of people. Right? But, yeah. Good. Yeah. What happened? Oh, you're thinking about those people. Or you
Oh.
Yeah. What? What are we talking about?
Brain blast?
Yeah, good. All right, let's continue. Let's finish off the thesis. Umiu heichad de bekimi tzarich lishpoich mimenu l'shar kaisis kedei sheyishtu kulam mekayv she'eni pogum. However, if the cups were pogum, then you would need to pour into the cups. Now that's a little bit of a problem. Pogum means that if we said that according to some opinions, once you drink from a cup, that the rest of the cup is no longer called Kiddush worthy. It's used. It's leftovers. We don't use leftovers for a holy purpose. Right? You respect God, you don't use leftovers for a holy purpose. Yeah? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's explaining to me a little bit what it means.
Good. Did he do a good job explaining it? Maybe you should have him give the class. Yeah. With what? What about bread? Are we making after bracha? Why are we talking about after? I'm not sure what we're talking about. Huh? You break bread, yeah. Yeah. How exactly? I'm not sure how exactly you deduced that from this. How did you figure that out from what we said? I see no. Yeah. No, we're talking about Kiddush. In order to make Kiddush, you have to make Kiddush on fresh wine, because Kiddush is like a respectful. You're basically saying, God, I respect your Sabbath, and therefore I'm gonna honor you by making a blessing on a cup of wine that's somebody else drank from. It's not prestigious, you know. So again, you're talking about blessing bread has nothing to do with it. When you bless bread, you're blessing God for giving you the ability to eat bread. It doesn't make a difference whether it's new, whether it's used. right? When you make a blessing on food, if you're eating leftovers, no problem. You want to eat leftovers, you still thank God for giving you the ability to eat leftovers. However, if you're making a proclamation, thanking God for giving you the Sabbath, and when you're thanking God for giving you the Sabbath, you're using a cup of wine that somebody else drank from, that already is not respectful. Yeah.
Any other drink, we can drink from it, bless it, and then later on.
Again, let's divide. There's a blessing that you bless to thank God for giving you pleasure, and there's a blessing that you make to thank God for giving you some, idea like Shabbat, right? Which means you're really praising God, right? You're praising God for making Shabbat versus praising God for giving you something, right? When you make a blessing on food because you're eating, you're basically thanking God for giving you personally pleasure, right? When you're proclaiming the Shabbat, you're basically honoring God for making Shabbat. You're not honoring God. Well, I guess you part of it. You're honoring God for giving you the ability to keep Shabbat, but it's almost like you're thanking God for making the Shabbat concept. You're not thanking God for giving you personal pleasure. You might mention that. By the way, the reason I'm saying that, if you look at the blessing, you might mention in the blessing a thanks to God for giving the Jewish nation the Shabbat. But that's not, the blessing is really praising God for making Shabbat to begin with. So we're praising God, which means the blessing is all about praising God. It's not about thanking Him for giving us something. If you like leftovers, you should thank God for giving you leftovers. If you don't, but don't praise God with leftovers, right? Meaning, don't praise God and say, God, you're so awesome that I'm making this ritual for you on leftovers. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So should I bless it? Bless it again?
What, to say another shahakal on the coffee? 100%. If you walk out of the room, you say another shahakal. With shahakal, every time you walk out of the room, you say another blessing. Yeah.
With room, I thought it was not time.
And also time as well. Meaning, if the second you decide you're no longer drinking, you have to make another blessing. But these are different rules. Again, we're getting sidetracked on the rules of the blessings, what's called the pleasure blessings, which is called birchas hanenin, which literally means the blessings on pleasure, right? We thank God for enabling us to have pleasure. Now, if you personally decide that you want to have pleasure on leftovers, so you should thank God for giving you that. Why not? Right? However, if you're praising God for something that you're honoring God, if you're honoring God, then you don't. If you're thanking God for giving you something, it doesn't make a difference. Whatever you want, you should thank God for, right? However, if you're honoring God, you should be bringing before Him something that is pure, holy, and respectful. As a matter of fact, we know that in the temple, in the Jerusalem temple, whenever they brought these animal sacrifices, it was prohibited from bringing a sacrifice with a wound, even a small wound. You say, what do I care if there's a cut in the animal's ear, right? The ear, okay, so what? It ran into a thorn and the ear got torn open, and now you see it looks like he has two ears instead of one ear, right? What's the difference? I mean, the animal's still a nice animal. I mean, why not? If I wanted to eat it for my steak, I can. No problem. You want to slaughter it and eat it for your steak? No problem. You want to enjoy it? What? What are you saying? No.
You give Hashem the best of the best.
Right. So I'm saying, so if you're bringing it as an offering to God, then it is not respectful to bring God something that is damaged goods, right? For yourself, if you want damaged goods, so you should thank God for giving you damaged goods. Yeah. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah. Does it make sense? Anyways, kenai nohore. Good. Yeah. How do we get into that? Anyways, whatever. If, again, let's kind of repeat what we just said to explain to everybody what's going on. If a person drank from a cup of wine, it's no longer Kiddush worthy. You cannot use that cup of wine for the Jewish ceremony of Kiddush.
The liquid in there, not the cup itself, right?
Correct. Correct. You have to, and in order to do that, you'd have to pour some wine into it that is not pogum. So he's just saying that if a person has in front of them a cup that they drank from, it will not be covered if the person making kiddush. Remember I told you, if the guy makes kiddush, he has a full cup. Everybody doesn't need a full cup, but they have to have some wine in their cups. However, that some wine cannot be drunken from. It cannot be leftovers, because if somebody drank from any of those wines, then the kiddush will go on all the wine except that one. Except the one that was already used. Yeah, that's all what he's saying. And then he says further, Afal Gav, even though the shtia loy ma'akva, kenaminim perek, mchol ma'arovin, even though you don't even have to drink from Kiddush. A lot of people don't know this, but you're not obligated to drink from Kiddush. You can hear Kiddush, you can say Amen, and you don't need to drink at all. This is something that a lot of people, I remember my kid once came to me crying. He was by a Kiddush and he says, no one gave me wine. I said, fine, go make a moitzi. He said, but I didn't get wine. I said, so what? You want wine? I'll give you wine, but you don't have to drink wine. You didn't get wine, you didn't get wine. Go wash your hands and make a moitzi. So, again, he wants to get a little bit of wine, but he doesn't have to. You don't have to. It is a custom that the Jewish people do, that everybody drinks from the wine of Kiddush, but you're not obligated to drink from the wine of Kiddush.
Why do we have mizonos after Kiddush on Shabbos day?
That has something completely to do with something completely different. We've discussed that in a few weeks ago, which has to do with the obligation that when you make Kiddush, you have to make it in the place of a meal, right? And therefore, you must connect it to eating a meal, and eating mizonot is a little bit like a meal. All right, the gam amoitzi. Even regarding amoitzi, yesh lechiach min Yerushalmi, you can prove from the words of the Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. You can prove from there. Yeah. Im yesh lekol echad kikorei. If each person has a whole piece of bread, like even a little one, but a whole piece of bread that's not broken, ein tzarich lahamtin. You don't have to wait. Every person could eat from his bread. This that it says in brachas as well. We say balabayis boitseah. The balabayis, the leader of the house, should break the bread. In order that he should break the bread and give everybody a nice big portion. The which sounds like you only eat what he gives out. You don't eat from your own individual piece of bread that's there. This is only if not everybody has their own bread in front of them before. You actually see very often at a Jewish event, you'll see that you come and you see every person has their own how do you say it? Their own bread. No. I wouldn't even say no, but I'm saying more, meaning it's not even like a broken bread. It's like a whole bread. It's a small one. We call them lachmaniyot. In Israel, lachmaniyot, and if you want to know in America, you go to some of the Jewish communities that speak Yiddish, they call them bilkelach. Bilkelach. That's unnecessary. You go tell somebody from 300 years ago, why on earth did you come up with this wacko name bilkelach? Shkoyach. It sounds cool. They said it bilkelach, right? So everybody has their bilkelach, which is basically a little bit, a small bread, an individually, a bread roll. Everyone has their own roll, and if everybody has their own roll, then they can eat from their roll without waiting for the balabais. However, if there's one big piece of bread that's broken, then the balabais should be the one to hand everybody. Meaning the balabais should serve everybody a piece of bread if everybody's eating from the same bread. Whereas if everybody has their own individual bread, then once the balabais makes his amoitzi, you don't even have to make amoitzi, which essentially takes away the original question from its roots. That the whole original question doesn't make sense. What? Keep people what? People make amoitzi when? Yeah. So that some people have that tradition. It's not. You don't have to. If you have in mind to be yotza with the balabayas on his amoitzi, then you can do it. Some people say to make it, it's nice to make the bracha. Yeah.
You can do it just to say the bracha.
Huh?
You can do it just to say the bracha.
You have to have in mind when the person makes the bracha. You have to have in mind that you're not being yotza his bracha. Although you should have in mind that your yotza is lecha mishnah, unless you have lecha mishnah, which means you have to have 2 portions of bread. Good.
Just realized in
especially in America, when you go out to eat,
Yeah.
a lot of restaurants,
That what?
they bring you bread first before anything else.
Yeah.
Is that maybe coming from the Jewish tradition?
Well, in the Jewish world, it would make sense. It would make sense that if you are eating a meal, you should have bread first. And the reason is very simple, because if you're eating bread first, you're supposed to wash your hands, make the blessing on bread first before everything else, and then continue your meal. Although, interestingly enough, I know you're telling me it seems to happen in non-Jewish restaurants a lot, but in my experience, even very few Jewish restaurants do that. Very often they bring you in a Jewish restaurant. Sometimes they bring you appetizers and this and that, and all of a sudden your main course comes, and it comes with a piece of bread. Then you have to get up in the middle of your meal to wash. Chutzpah.
Yeah, you go to Olive Garden and they bring you unlimited breadsticks and salads so that you don't eat too much of the expensive pasta sauce.
Huh?
Yeah,
Where's this?
Olive Garden, they bring you.
Where's the Olive Garden?
They bring you unlimited. Or if you go to Fazoli's.
Huh? It's a chain Italian restaurants. Kosher? Oh no, I never heard of it.
It's responsible for at least 17% of the diabetes in America.
17% of diabetes comes from
Olive Garden.
why? Because they give you too much bread.
Too many breadsticks. Or Fazoli's also.
Truth is, bread fills you up a lot very quick, right? And much quicker than other things. I would wonder why a restaurant would want to give you so much bread, because then you'll be well. They should give you bread at the end. So first you buy all the expensive stuff, and then at the end you eat the bread, and then you get full, and then you leave feeling full. Right. By the way, one thing I hate when I go to a restaurant, I spent a whole bunch of money and I leave and I'm hungry. I hate that. To me, it's like I feel ripped off. I don't want to go to the restaurant ever again. What do you mean? I came to your restaurant, I paid you for a whole fancy meal, and then I come leave and I want to eat something else?
Also, can you even bench if you're not satiated?
Yes, you could if you ate enough bread. You have to eat a kazayas bread, even though the rabbi said that kazayas bread doesn't necessarily satiate everybody, but they made a rule that you still have to do grace after meals if you eat a olive-sized piece of bread. Yeah? Good. They're very interesting today. We went through this. What's that? Depends what slice, what size of bread you're talking about. Whole grain bread, even like one slice like that big, is probably a kazayas. Yeah. Yeah. However, to wash, you're officially supposed to have a larger size, which might require you 2 slices of bread. But I'm not going to get in. We're not getting into the rules of that are not necessarily relevant to our current Talmudic conversation.
Sorry.
All right? You don't have to be sorry. It's fine. All right, we're going to go to questions. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask. Remember, we only answer questions that are relevant to the topic on discussion. If you want to ask me some wacko question, you could ask me, but I won't answer. That's it. And by the way, that's for all people on the live stream as well. If you put in a comment into your live stream, whatever platform you're on, it will come up in my computer. And if it's something that I feel is relevant to the class, we will answer it. Otherwise, somebody else might have to answer it for you from the group, whatever it is. Yeah.
My question is, if there are multiple people making kiddush at the table, do you have to wait for the other to pour? Because if 2 people have poured kiddush, and they're saying, each of them are saying their own bracha, that guy's bracha goes on mine, and mine bracha goes on his, right? How does that exactly?
Oh, now you're treacherying very heavy water, and you may notice that some people are careful not to have the wine bottle closed while somebody else makes kiddush before they pour their own.
Right.
And there's a concept of that, because the fact is that if you have an exposed cup on the table and somebody makes kiddush, it could potentially be going on there. Now, you could also argue that since it's your cup and you didn't intend for that kiddush to go on that cup, you can argue that it didn't. However, in order to be extra careful, there are many people that they don't rely on
Just
this.
go right away because he's making kiddush over there and I'm making kiddush over here, so I shouldn't. To be safe,
It goes
you
somewhat
wait.
on intentions. You know, human intentions have a lot of power, and you see this a lot in Judaism. You see this a lot in some other spiritual realities that you know, what you think has a massive impact on what you do. And so again, you can argue that since it's my cup of wine and I poured it with the specific intention of making kiddush myself and not having the other kiddush to go on it, so then it doesn't. However, some people are still careful, even though halachically you can get away with it, but some people are extra careful and don't do that. All right? Good. Verstanden? Good. All right. Everybody should go study the Talmud inside, and I'm going to be calling people at random. We're going to see how well you read the Talmud inside. Yes. In a few minutes, we'll get to the Tosfos Bezrat Hashem, and then I'm going to start asking guys to read from inside and see how well you know it. For all of you that are online, you could right now go on, Talmud group, here we go. There we go. You just see on the screen, there is a QR code to join our WhatsApp group, and then you can get the worksheets, and you could also message me if you want to even get tested. If you did actually the work of the worksheets, and you want to get tested on it, we could organize that as well, right? That's that. What else? I think that's it. Oh, there's also a QR code in the corner, in the top left-hand corner of your screen. There's a QR code. If you want to participate today, we are printing the book of Tanya, a great Kabbalistic book. We're going to print it right here in-house. And if you donate, you can either buy the book or you can get a dedication in it, etc. But why is it so small? Can you make it bigger? No?
It's just it's a different kind. I mean, I could make it.
All right, fine. Yeah, we'll leave it. Though, have a good day. Nice to meet you. Please share, subscribe. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Smash whatever you want to smash, except for somebody else. Don't smash somebody else.
Yeah. Smash the bell button.
If you smash the bell button, you can't use it for something else.
Oh yeah, respectfully, gently press the button.
Gently, calm down. Just
calm down.
that's it. All right.